So this is what it is. From 2016 until 2021, we're going to do 5 years of field work and 1 year of analysis. This project is a partnership between University of Tennessee in Knoxville, TWRA, the National Wild Turkey Federation, and the landowners in the study area. And I just want to say that our officers and our Region 2 personnel on the ground, actually out there doing this work, have put forth tremendous effort. The NWTFF has been tremendously supportive, and the researchers report that they are on target with all their goals, and things are going better than expected in this first year, which is going on right now. People are out on the ground doing this monitoring. The study site is Wayne, Lawrence, and Giles County, and I put a verses in there in between those 3 counties and Murray and Bedford. In Wayne, Lawrence, and Giles, we have a long-term downward trend of harvest for spring turkey season. We're going to compare our results from this study in those 3 counties to 2 counties that have a long-term trend of increasing harvest. And so we'll learn a lot in that comparison. The actual work involves the monitoring of 200 turkeys and 50 poults via radio telemetry per year. So that's 5 years of that. There's going to be measurements regarding habitat use. We're going to do phone or mail surveys, and of course that disease assessment that I talked about earlier. Cost-wise, averaging all 6 years of cost together, on average it's going to cost us $226,000 a year. There are no state tax dollars. What's happening is the University of Tennessee of Knoxville is contributing 25% of the funds necessary, and we're getting a federal PR match via TWRA of $170,000 per year. So why are we doing this study? What are the main reasons we're doing this study? We are doing this to understand the cause of harvest decline in Wayne, Lawrence, and Giles County. We're concerned about that. The other reason we're doing this study is to develop a Tennessee turkey population model to use in statewide management decisions. We're doing this so we can answer that question that we understand now is so important. We're also doing this to investigate alternative strategies for statewide turkey management. Perhaps habitat management would be one of these. So why is the study so long? Why does it take 6 years to answer this question? It's standard scientific practice to use 3 to 5 years of data to have a data set that you can actually base decisions on, because there's year-to-year variations. And these variations are due to factors that we can't control, such as the weather, disease outbreaks, food shortages, just, the ecological chain is endless of what can affect what. So what about regulation changes? Does that fit in that line there? Accounting for year-to-year variations due to factors we can't control? Well, the fact is we can control regulation changes. And so what we've asked for, ideally, is that the regulations would remain, constant throughout the study. That would be most ideal, because that's what is, recommended. However, we realize, and the researchers realize, when we brought this forward to you last year, that that's not really a reality. Regulation changes are going to happen. But we do ask that we have at least 2 years, a 2-year minimum of stable regulations. And that's the main reason that we're not recommending a change in the daily bag limit this year. So what else could this regulation change affect? Well, it could affect hunter satisfaction. In fact, if you're going to change a regulation, you would hope that it would improve hunter satisfaction. And there's 2 ways we can look at hunter satisfaction. We can look at the public comments that come in during our comment openings, and we can look at surveys designed to get a statewide perspective of the opinions and attitudes of our turkey hunters. And we have one from 2015 that we conducted just for that very reason. And it was a prompting of the commission at that time. So these are the public comments that have come in. In April, we had a total of 26 comments aimed at making turkey suggestions. As far as the daily bag goes, 5 of those were in support of raising the daily bag. 12 of those wanted to decrease opportunity in the spring season. Things like lowering the bag limit or shortening the season, that sort of thing, which I thought was interesting. And then in May, in between commission meetings, we had 12 turkey comments come in, and 4 of those were for raising the daily bag. And actually, 4 of those were for raising the daily bag. So the Hunter Survey, in 2015, Dr. Neelam Pudial and his team conducted a mail survey, and these guys are at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. They sent out 4,000 or 5,000 surveys, and they got 1,308 spring turkey hunters to respond. And this was a significant response rate, and it makes this study scientifically valid that, that the hunters, the opinions expressed by this survey, we feel like are representative of our turkey hunters. And the reason we did this survey is to assess hunter opinion and attitude toward turkey hunting and regulations. So we asked hunters point blank, would you like to raise the daily bag? And 59% said yes, 20% said no, and 21% said maybe. But I'd like to point out that there's no cost associated with this question. It's kind of like asking somebody, well, here is your ice cream cone with 1 scoop on it. Would you like to have 2 at no extra cost? I don't know. I would. I'd say yes. So what's the rest of the story? What else can we look at in this survey to help us understand? So let's look at how they feel about spring hunting altogether. When asked if they were satisfied or how satisfied hunters are with their spring hunting experience, 62% indicate they're satisfied, 18% are kind of meh, and 20% are dissatisfied. So let's get it at the dissatisfaction. And we asked them point blank, please fill in a blank, why are you dissatisfied? The top answer is they're not seeing or hearing birds. And this was by far and above the top answer. It was significantly more people wrote this in than all the other ones. The second answer is that they're unable to participate for personal reasons. And the third answer was a lack of success. They had a hard time harvesting a bird. So what can we do about this dissatisfaction? And specifically, this dissatisfaction about not seeing or hearing birds. Well, the main thing to do is to increase the number of gobblers on the ground. Well, what does raising the daily bag limit do for that goal? And as we saw earlier, it's going to raise hunter efficiency, which is going to decrease our harvest, or which is going to have that impact on that harvest that will raise it up toward over-harvest mark. Now, were we reaching that mark? I really don't know. I don't know where we are in that, but we could know. We need to do that research study to find out. So let's look at our regulations. That's the one thing we can do and really have control over is our spring season regulations. What if we change those? How would that affect hunter satisfaction? So we looked at 7 aspects of of spring regulations in regard to hunter satisfaction. And we're just gonna ignore all the number 6 because we're concerned about the daily limit. It's really what we're looking at. We asked hunters, on a scale of 1 to 5, how important is the daily limit in the spring regulations to you? And we asked hunters, on a scale of 1 to 5, how satisfied are you with the daily limit aspect of the spring regulations? So if you look at the bottom, that is their satisfaction level on a scale of 1 to 5. On the left-hand side, they feel like it's an unimportant regulation. They could care less. On the right-hand side, they feel like it's a very important regulation. And changing that would affect them very much. Most hunters said that they thought it was pretty important. So on the perpendicular scale, we've got satisfaction. So at the bottom of the graph, hunters indicate that they are unsatisfied with the way spring regulations are set up right now. And at the top indicates that they're very satisfied. And then they wouldn't be favorable of much change because they're satisfied with the way spring regulations are as they stand. Well, when you look at all 7 aspects are represented by those dots up in the right-hand corner. Where did those land? And they landed at a 4. Hunters are pretty satisfied. So where's daily limit? Well, it's right there. So all in all, hunters indicate they're pretty satisfied with the daily limit, and they understand, and they indicate that it's pretty important. We also asked, okay, I'm gonna stop right there. So I think in conclusion, looking at the hunter satisfaction, we can see that raising the daily bag limit, I don't think would have a whole lot of effect ultimately on hunter satisfaction at a statewide level, judging from this survey. And that kind of concludes my, I guess, my presentation regarding impacts of a possible daily bag change. Now, I do have about 3 slides to talk about fall season and address the questions that were raised last time, but if you want to dive into the 2 per day and see if you have any questions or discussion about that.
Would you like to finish your presentation? And then
I can.
Please do, and then we'll
Okay.
just discuss it all. Thank you.
So, using the same survey, we asked, one thing that came up last commission meeting was, if we're concerned about our turkey population, why don't we just close fall season? And one thing I will couch is that we did close fall season in those 3 counties 2 or 3 years ago, because we are concerned about the turkey population in those counties. And so, looking at that question, why don't we? Well, where we are concerned, we did. And the second is because why don't we just do it across the state if we've got this statewide concern? Well, the reason is hunters really like fall season. We asked them, is fall season important? And these are spring turkey hunters. We didn't ask turkey hunters if fall season is important. We asked spring turkey hunters, and they said 81% said yes. And that's pretty significant. So we asked them, we're targeting hens. Hens, one of the questions was, well, hens drive the population, so let's just close hens. And so we asked turkey hunters, what if we did that? What if we made it to where you could only harvest bearded turkeys in the fall? And only 18% of hunters thought that was an acceptable option. And so that's why we kind of do this on a county-to-county basis. It's not something we do statewide, is this sort of thing. And also because we don't, we're taking less than 500 hens last year. And on a statewide level, that's fairly insignificant. And it's not necessarily the hens that drive the population, it's how well the hens do at reproduction that drive the population. So you could have, if the problem is, say, in brooding habitat, if you overfill that brooding habitat, you're going to have even more problem getting those poults to recruit to the adult stage. And adding more hens to that isn't necessarily the answer. So we recommend really, hopefully, having some real answers from the research study that I've gone into depth here regarding the fall season. And I hope I've explained why we kind of recommend doing what we do for the fall season. One thing that came up last commission meeting was there is no daily bag limit in the fall season. And why is this? And what does that mean? And should we make a daily bag limit? Well, when the bag limits were pretty liberal, in some counties you could take as many as 6 birds. And that was not only the bag limit for that county, it was also the daily bag limit. And when that was happening, I've got years 2014 and 2015. And what I've gotten here, these numbers are for the number of hunters who take a certain number of birds during one day. So let's just look at 2014 when we had liberal fall bag limits. The number of hunters that took one bird in one day was 1,189. The number of hunters that took two birds in one day, 132. And 3 in one day, 39. 4 in one day, 9. 5 birds in a day, 7. And one hunter managed to take 6 birds in a day. And in 2015, one hunter managed to take 3 birds in a day. Well, now that we've got the bag limit set, which is what we did last season, for one turkey per county in those counties that are open, you effectively, in order to harvest more than one bird in a day, have to jump counties. So you have to get up in the morning and you have to harvest a bird that morning. Then you have to travel and start hunting all over again in a different county in order to harvest another bird. And so effectively, you did change the daily bag limit. Not technically, not in words, but if you look at the numbers, you've only got 15 hunters that managed to take 2 birds in a day, and you've only got 1 hunter who managed to take 3 birds in a day. And so I just kind of wanted to show you that in regard to that question that was brought up. And that's all I've got for you.
Thank you, Joy. Chairman Woodson, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joy, thank you for your presentation. And this is just sort of refreshing our memory. You've mentioned it a few times, but I want to make sure I have sort of the last 3 years in my mind accurately. You mentioned earlier, when was it that we eliminated the fall season for the 3 counties where the populations are in concern? When was that?
We, in 2015 was the first year that we closed, that fall turkey season didn't happen in those counties.
Got it. So that was in 15, the 3 counties closed, and then in 16, it's 1 per community. That was the limit last year.
Right, those
Further
3
reduction.
counties are still
They're
closed.
still eliminated, but all other counties
Right.
reduced to 1. And that was the action in 16. Thanks.
That wasn't really the action in 16, that was the effect in 16. So you made
15.
You get what I'm saying?
When
So the
did
season
the
in
commission
16?
act on the
When did they act?
change?
Okay, they acted on the change in 2014, and the season actually happened where it was closed in 2015. So there's a year delay
And then,
in
right,
there.
and then for the reduction for fall, the effect was in 16, but the action was in 15.
Correct.
Thank you for refreshing my memory.
Sure thing.
Any comments from the commission? I'm sorry, the committee?
I've got some questions, please, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cox?
Joy, did y'all discuss in your meetings any effect of hunter opportunity or license sales with the 2 bird per day limit?
Yes, we did. In fact, there are, in our discussions, generally we have representatives of each of our 4 counties. And there are definitely discussions about that very thing. But the agency stance at the end of the day is that we'd like to be conservative, that the opportunity that would be made with this regulation change, the juice isn't really worth the squeeze with the things that we don't know at this point in time. If that makes sense.
You talked about the harvesting of the gobblers could have a negative effect, a dangerously negative effect on the population. Is that right?
If we're close to taking too many gobblers,
Well, are we?
we don't know.
Okay. If that's a concern, would you agree that the hens are the ones that lay the eggs and the ones that reproduce, and they have the biggest effect on the population?
I would argue that the eggs and how well the eggs do would have the biggest effect on the population because, and like you said, like I said before, we don't know, but
The
it's
question
very
wasn't-
likely that it's a habitat issue when it comes to reproduction and how well reproduction is going. So if your limiting factor, and I kind of believe this is the case, but I don't know, but the limiting factor is the amount of habitat that we have for nesting and brooding, which is very specific habitat. If that's the limiting factor, more hens doesn't help. Because those hens are going to nest in a place where they're going to get eaten by predators because they don't have enough cover. Those poults are going to eat in a place where they don't have enough cover, and they're going to get predated. And so just adding more hens to fail, it's the success rate of the hens, I guess, is what really drives the population.
I get that. We're talking about recruitment, but you would agree that the hens lay the eggs. I mean, the hens
I
are the
can't
ones
argue with
reproduce.
that.
Okay, that's what I asked you. And we're talking about recruitment, and you've gone on to habitat and recruitment and all that, which is not the question, but I fail to see if there's concern about some of the things that you've highlighted, which some of them are the first time I've heard it, that we still have a fall harvest. If we're talking about the gobblers or the males, which is elk or deer or turkeys or whatever it is, they're not the ones that have the babies. So I fail to see how we're still hunting fall anywhere if there's a concern that we may be close to killing too many birds. And this year we're killed as more birds than we've killed since 2012. Been 30,000 or more every year since 2012. I'm not sure behind that. We stopped the fall hunting in the 3 study counties 2 years ago, and this year the harvest is up in those 3 counties. Wonder why. So, and then you ask about you had the fall 81% was really important for the fall hunting, but that's kind of like the ice cream. You didn't tell them you didn't ask them if it's important to you, but if there's a threat to the population, should we continue to hunt? Probably would change that number. Would you agree to that?
It might.
All right. I guess that's all. I had some more, but I forgot. Thank you.
Any other comments from the committee? Commissioner Holbert?
I know a lot of the states, or several states around us, have went to at least 2 birds a day. What's the impact of the harvest there?
The only state that has made that change recently is actually Florida, and they did it 1 year ago. So they've only got 1 year of data, but they don't see any dramatic change in anything after making that change.
One question I have is really bothersome to me. On the charts, you keep saying we have no idea of the impact of what we're killing. But yet, over the years, we've raised the commission has raised the limit from 2 to 3 to 4. What was that information based on if we have never had an idea of what impact the kill was based on?
That information is based on the harvest. So if you go back and find that harvest graph, and you look at this, it's overwhelmingly positive. And so when you've
was
got
the
that
season?
strong of a trend in a harvest graph, and that's what we're using, then you've got confidence in that your population is indeed climbing. But when you reach a capacity level, we've got only got so much habitat. Well, we finally filled it up. And we're trying, we need to know more in order, it's a finer line. When you're in restoration, you see that harvest, your restoration's going great. You are restoring turkeys. But then we're in a different phase of wildlife management altogether now.
What year was it changed to 4 birds?
I don't know off the top of my head.
It's
I'd
about
like-
2005, I think, 4 or 5.
I'd like to know just by looking at that graph and match it up to that.
Any other comments from the committee?
I'd also, it seemed like part of the survey we're wanting to pay attention to, and part of it we're not, of the Knoxville survey. 20% aren't satisfied, and then, wasn't it, what, 60 per, how many would like to see 2 birds a day?
Roughly, I think it was 59%.
59%. But we don't want to pay attention to that part of it, but we want to use the other parts of it, so.
Sure, and I would love to give you the full report. And in fact, I handed it out, or offered it for handout this time last year. But I can redistribute that, just let me know. I will send you the PDF. I would love for you to read the whole thing.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna make a motion. I'm gonna make a motion to amend Proclamation 1703 to allow 2 turkeys, 2 bearded turkeys per day in the spring season, but 1 must be checked in prior to harvesting the other.
It's fall hunting, you're just going, second.
Any discussion from the committee? So the amendment is that 2 bearded turkeys be taken per day in the spring season as long as the first turkey is checked in first before you harvest the second. Commissioner Box?
Is that going to affect the study that we're doing? They asked for 2 full years, no changes?
Well, I'll offer my opinion. My opinion is that, our responsibility is to, this is really loud. Our responsibility is to base our decisions on science, to be deliberate, and after listening to Joy's presentation, it seems like there's nothing else to say. If you listen to that, and we're going to be deliberate, we're going to base on the information we have, I'm definitely opposed to this. And one of the big reasons is, too, in the last 2 years, we've decreased hunter opportunity. Now we're discussing increased hunter opportunity. All the while approved a $1.2 million study to decide whether we should increase or decrease hunter opportunity. And it's just extremely inconsistent, and I'm opposed to that. Any other discussion from the committee?
One
Commissioner
question for
Stroud?
Joy. You said that 2 years really does give you some information on this, 5 or 6 year study? Is that what you're saying, or 3-year study?
As far as the regulation
And you only
goes,
had 1, right?
we've had 1, which is what's,
So you'll
they're
feel
out
more-
there in the field right now.
But you'll feel more comfortable with 2?
With 2, absolutely, we'll feel more comfortable. It's kind of like when we were looking at the chart that James showed you. And you had that, it was the bucks, and the percentage of bucks with antler under 3 inches.
Yeah.
And you had that jump in the percentage in 2007. And now here, after we changed the regulation, we have a jump. But we don't know if it's an anomaly like it was in 2007.
Yeah. But would you
And
know
if we
it?
had 2 years, we would be more confident. It's the same exact thing. We'd
But
like
my
one more
question is,
year.
if in 2 years, would you ask for another year? Is my point. You're telling us 1, I get that.
No, when we asked for you to approve the budget for this study, we asked for 2 years. Again, I'm here asking for 2 years. Next year, I'm not gonna ask for another
I
year.
got you. Thank you.
I'd like to add to that, though. We've heard it today, and I think we've heard it last month. But anytime we make a change, it would be my opinion, we should try to stick with something for 3 years, because as I think you said it, someone said a few minutes ago that 3 to 5 years is just a good scientific approach to evaluating data. 1 year means nothing. 2 years, maybe you're getting to see a trend, but 3 to 5 years, it's more accurate data, and that's just a fact. And so even next year, we might choose to go to 2, but it'd be better to wait for 3. And that's just the reality of it. Any other comments from the committee? Joy?
I have one comment. If you do go forth, it looks like you're going forth with a proposal for an amendment. I want to, oh. I strike that comment.
Commissioner Carter, did you have a comment?
I agree with you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the members of the committee? Chairman Woodson, do you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just as this is obviously an issue that's important to individual members of the commission, I just want to kind of talk through what I thought I heard. And one more clarification, Joy. It was last year, just under 12 months ago today, that some number of members of this commission actually authorized the agency to participate in the study.
That's right.
Y'all didn't just do it on your own. It was something that we endorsed as the commission
Absolutely.
through our votes. Okay. So a couple of thoughts. I mean, one, I really want to let us all hear the words that the chairman used about giving the opportunity to behave in a way that's informed by data, in a way that is consistent year to year. And I realize there are members of this commission who were not here 11 months ago, and that's important. But for those of us, including me, who were, that consistency is very important. When I think about the opportunity that we have to have a full state turkey model, a turkey population model, what a great opportunity we have in our desire to create more opportunities for sportsmen in Tennessee to spring and fall turkey hunt, whichever is going to be the greatest opportunity and is going to balance the interest of the resource so that we can enjoy that. When I think about our desire to be consistent, 2 years ago, we eliminate hunting in communities that I represent directly, but we all represent as agency commissioners. Last year, we reduced the hen take in the fall and the turkey take in the fall. And then we would consider increasing the opportunity for a daily bag. It seems confusing and inconsistent to do those two things within such a short period of time. When I think about how important it is, this business of hunter satisfaction is important, but it's also just getting input from the folks who utilize these resources. And when we think about the 800 some odd folks who took the time, effort, and energy to comment on this, 26 of them commented on turkeys specifically. 5 of them said that they would support this in April. 12, over double that number, said they wanted the number completely reduced by 1. Adding in May, which was after we had our April conversation, so the issues there out in the public arena, 9 people total, that's including the 5 from the April comments, 9 people total in the state made a comment about this, and 19 total said they wanted spring reduced by 1 bird. That's double the number. That's a conflict within the important user groups that we have to balance out when we're thinking about a major change. And I think that I think it's very important for us to know the impact of these regulations, whether it's fall or spring, but I do think it's a fallacy or a false argument to say that because fall turkey hunting exists, therefore we must liberalize the spring. Those two things are separate and important issues, but I don't know that one necessarily impacts the other. And so I would just say that if we want to have a conversation, I'm a very simple person. Data matters. Facts matter. And I don't know the impact of this decision on the resource. And based on that bar chart, the current regulations are holding pretty consistent. And we're taking a beat, as they say, to really understand what
the impact of the population is based on the regulations that we've passed. And so I just want us to think about that. It is very hard for me, and a desire to be consistent, to be data-driven, and to be strategic, to reconcile this proposal with those goals. So thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Woodson, and I think, just as an aside too, just for me, the fact that it is starting to vary some, we've probably hit our carrying capacity. Here's the perfect time to have the study, because now you can see what effects it's going to have. So I think it's a perfect time to do our study and to leave it alone. So I think we're ready for the vote, and I'd like to have a roll call vote. I'm sorry.
Joy, what results? I'll turn mine off, so.
I'll turn my,
My blue light doesn't work. What results are you looking forward to come back with next year to where you would not oppose this?
We won't have any, in order to get that population model to work, we've got to get those rates. And we'll have survival rates, mortality rates, recruitment rates, we'll have all those rates. But we're not going to have confidence in that at that point in time, because we want 3 to 5 years of data to make decisions on, right? So we'll have that then to plug into that population model. So nothing from this study is going to influence what I say when I come back at this time 1 year from now. What will have influence is exactly kind of the discussion that you guys just had, is we asked for a minimum of 2 years. If we come back next year and we've had that minimum, we've met the condition that was raised when the study was conceived. So if you want to raise it, just wait another year, essentially, is the thing of it. And like Commissioner Cook said, ideally, 3 to 5 years. But, we've had long-term discussions in the creation and design of the study, and the researchers and TWA and everybody involved is confident in asking for that minimum of 2 years.